god, I've just seen a parrot. Wow, there is this bright yellow parrot. I've never seen a parrot here. Come to Singapore, you'll see parrots from your window. Hi everyone, so my name is Georgia and I am an expat living here in Singapore. I've been living here for almost 3 years now. So before I moved here, I was frantically searching what it's like to live in Singapore, what to expect when moving to Singapore, and I really couldn't find too much information, especially on YouTube. So that's why I kind of created this series where I talk about what it's like to be an expat living in Singapore, kind of give you a more honest insight and also some advice. So if you are moving here or you're thinking about moving here, I'm going to try and tell you everything that you need to know before you move to Singapore, just to make your transition a little bit more easier. So if these are the kind of videos that you're looking for, do remember to subscribe to my channel. I'm just going to go ahead and get started and tell you everything you need to know before moving to Singapore. Okay, so number one is the weather. I get a lot of questions from people asking what the weather's like here, what are the hot seasons, what are the colder seasons, and the truth is it is 30+ degrees all year round. The average temperature here is 30 to 33 degrees. The humidity is usually 70% plus, so expect it to be super humid. It will definitely take you a while to adapt to the humidity. I know when I first moved here, I was having 2 to 3 showers a day because I was just so hot all the time, but the longer you stay here, the more your blood kind of thins and you just get used to it. The second thing to bear in mind is that it rains here a lot. It will just all of a sudden out of nowhere completely downpour, and it's not just, you know, your usual light rainfall. These are tropical rainfalls, so they are super heavy. They may not last that long, but you can also get days where it just rains all day long. So my number one tip would be to make sure you are always carrying an umbrella on you. Come rain or shine, you will always need an umbrella. I usually carry an umbrella now for when it's too hot because it keeps the sun out, because it can get a bit unbearable sometimes, but you'll always need an umbrella because it can rain at any moment. So don't forget your umbrella. So the second thing is Singlish, and if you've been doing your research, you'll know that the majority of Singaporeans speak Singlish. Now this is a mix up between English but also thrown in some Hokkien, some Malay words as well, so it's a bundle of all different languages. And it's the way that Singaporeans communicate with each other a bit more easier. It's just like a slang. Bear in mind that they do speak English as well, so most of Singaporeans are bilingual, which is great, and it makes it much easier for foreigners to communicate with Singaporeans. But at first you will find it really hard to understand them, most likely. For the first few months I spent at my work, I had no idea what anyone was saying, honestly, and they were speaking English, but with the Singaporean accent and the Singlish mixed in, I found it so difficult to understand them. But now it's just like a second language to me now that I understand. So give yourself a break, give yourself some time, but always be willing to ask what certain words mean and get involved with the locals as well. Next, I know Singapore is notoriously one of the most expensive cities in the world, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. There's lots of ways that you can reduce your spending here and your outgoings. You can live in a HDB instead of a condo. That will significantly reduce your rent. You can also apartment share with people instead of having your own apartment. And the next is public transport. Public transport is your best friend here. Really won't need a car. I mean, if you have kids and maybe you feel like you want to drive your family around, you could consider getting a car, but because the prices of cars are so outrageous, public transport really will be your best friend. So it's really inexpensive. And then when it comes to food, obviously you can opt for the more expensive restaurants and things like that, but you also have hawker centers where you can get food from like $3 to $5 per dish, which is incredibly cheap. Quality of food is great. It's so tasty. You can get anything you want. So yes, it can be expensive, but there's definitely ways to work around it. So it depends if you want to be more frugal or not. So ultimately the cost of living doesn't really need to be as expensive as you think. And next is that I'm not Singaporean. Singaporeans refer to the older generations as auntie and uncle. They call the older males uncle and the older women auntie. Now at first I was like, is everyone related? Like, I'm really confused. But no, not everyone is related. It's just like a thing they do out of a sign of respect, and I think it's really cute. So if you ever hear people calling other people auntie and uncle, they're probably not related, but they're just referring to the older generation. So I know I've already touched on it briefly, but I wanted to talk more about public transport. In comparison to the UK, public transport here is so much more affordable. So you have the MRT, which is the underground or subway, it's the train service. and you have your buses, and then you have taxis. The public transport here is super efficient, although I know a lot of Singaporeans are bound to disagree with me, but in comparison to the UK, public transport here is a breeze. From what I've experienced, it's been completely reliable, and it can get you from A to Z all over Singapore, so there's nowhere that you won't be able to reach with public transport. And I think that's the best part, is that because Singapore is such a small island, public transport allows you to get anywhere you want. So obviously you've probably heard about the food in Singapore, but if you are a foodie, this is going to be heaven for you. There is some incredible food in Singapore, and there is so much variety. You can have anything you want here, anything you dream of, and there'll be so many new cuisines that you probably haven't tried before that will most likely become your new favorite dishes. So honestly, get excited about the food here. It's definitely something to look forward to, although I will say that the price of groceries in local supermarkets are generally a lot more priced up than you may be used to back home. But again, there's certain ways that you can work around it. So the most amazing thing about living here is the traveling that you can do. The location of Singapore means that you can visit all these incredible Asian destinations, which are just a stone's throw away from Singapore. And because they are so close, it means that your travel fares won't be as expensive either. I would say get ready to plan your weekend getaways from Singapore, because there are so many to do. And if a weekend isn't long enough for you, Singapore has a generous amount of public holidays. So we have usually 8 to 10 public holidays per year, so this means that you can extend your weekend or midweek trips and have a longer holiday. Just a little tip though, plane fares increase ridiculously over public holidays, so make sure you're planning your public holiday trips well in advance. I say at least 6 months in advance, so that you don't get ripped off basically. Next is the size of Singapore. I don't think people really realise how small Singapore actually is. It's a tiny city. So the perks of that is obviously it's easy to travel to all the different parts of Singapore. Maybe the negative is that it is so small, so sometimes you feel like you're in a little bubble, but that's why traveling often is such a great option. My next piece of advice would be to pack for the heat. Don't bring any jumpers, don't bring any coats. So literally shorts and t-shirts and vest tops is all you'll be wearing. Make sure you pack your flip-flops. As I said, it's not going to drop below 30 degrees, so just really make sure you pack light for your wardrobe. Next is Singapore laws. As you might have heard, some of the laws in Singapore are very extreme, but I would say they're there more as a warning. When I first moved here, I was definitely under the impression that I was going to get arrested for everything, and I was kind of scared that I was going to do something wrong, but I think they are a lot more lenient than they're kind of made out to be. So don't be scared and think that you won't be able to do anything, because it's not really like that, but just do be wary that there are, I guess, a lot more laws put in place. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is chop, and that means to reserve a table. Now, I advise that you learn this skill quickly because it's genius and is also really efficient. So either you can get a packet of tissues, and if you go to a restaurant you can, or a hawker centre, you can just put the tissues on a table that you want and it technically reserves it. So once you've chopped the table, you can then go and get your food and bring it back, and no one will be sitting at your table. And it's pretty damn genius, so just bear that in mind. If you see people selling tissues, or like you see tissues all over the table and you're thinking, what is this? That's what it's about. You can also use like an umbrella to chop a table, but yeah, if you see that, that's what it is. Okay guys, I think I'm going to wrap up the video here. I really hope that my tips were helpful. As always, you can leave any questions that you have below in the comments and I will be sure to reply to you. Let me know if there's any other topics that you'd like me to cover about living in Singapore. If you would like to see more of my life, kind of behind the scenes, you can go ahead and follow me on Instagram at The Vintage Vision. You can also DM me on there as well if you have any more questions, and I will try my best to get back to you. All in all, good luck with your move to Singapore. You will not regret it. Relax, don't stress about it. I know moving a country can be really daunting. It was the scariest thing I've done, but it was hands down the best decision I've ever made. So I hope this makes you feel less anxious and more excited about your move. If this video was helpful, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps me out, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.
Thanks for watching guys. Click the videos on the left hand side for more information on being a Singapore expat.